Satnam, welcome everybody. Let's start with Adgure Name and then we'll begin. Adgure Name, Shigadgure Name, Satgure Name, Sri Gurudeve Name, Adgure Name, Shigadgure Name, Satgure Name, Sri Gurudeve Name, Adgure Name, Shigadgure Name, Satgure Name, Sri Gurudeve Name. Thank you, welcome. I will introduce, I'm Gurutrang Singh in Toronto, I'm hosting, and we have Sohan Kaur there. He just turned on her mute, so we can't hear her, and all the beautiful traffic in her neighborhood. Liptar Kaur, she is doing translation for us. And I was told that our South African guests would be coming half hour late. So hopefully we'll be seeing Bhajan Singh and Pritam Harikar in about half an hour. So welcome. I'm old news on this webinar. You're the news. Can you tell us something about yourself? And you can speak Spanish or English. We have interpretation.
Well, I can speak English, but whatever
whatever flows more naturally through you, we're equipped. Oh, look who came. Look who we've got here. Bhajan Singh, all the way from South Africa. Satnam, welcome. Shall we do Adgare again? Let's put our hands together. Okay. Adgare Name, Adgare Name, Satgare Name, Sri Gurudeve Name, Adgare Name, Jigadgare Name, Satgare Name, Sri Gurudeve Name, Adgare Name, Jigadgare Name, Satgare Name, Sri Gurudeve Name. Okay, so that's Bhajan Singh in South Africa. So my first time meeting everybody here. So your participants here, these are new people. You're new to me too, except for Liptar Kaur. We've met on the computer before. So my first time meeting Bhajan Singh and Sohan Kaur. So nice to see you. So far it's all just emails, email. Now I see faces and it's more real. Yeah. Wonderful.
Nice to meet you too, and I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for this wonderful invitation, this great opportunity to share my experience with the Citizen Sab and all these years learning and teaching and living the teachings of the Citizen Sab, Kundalini Yoga and Sikh Dharma also. Yes.
Great. Oh, you know what I should do? Why don't I do a bit of introduction? I have my own introduction here from now Sohan Kaur. You gave me a small, looked like a book, which was your introduction. So I will just put it down a little bit. You were in Colombia, and you had an interest in archaeology, which turned into an interest into social unrest, let's say, and you have guerrilla warfare going on there. So you were interested in that movement, and that took you to academia in Sweden. You studied it, and then you had this idea that academia is very academic. If you term something as academic, it's not real, and that you want to do something more real. You came back to Bogota and you found some guidance. Took you to Mexico, I think, and you did teacher training in Kundalini Yoga, and you started a center. There you are. Great. And Bhajan Singh is there. He has a great story too. He was a reluctant South Africaner. He was in South Africa, but he didn't want to be a part of the regime, so he ran away and he went to the Caribbean, and he's on an island called Union, I think it's called. And he found a French-speaking yoga teacher who taught him Kundalini Yoga, and he was very inspired. So he went to the source and went to California and did his Kundalini Yoga there, and ended up in a class with Yogi Bhajan. And it's a very sweet story. I'm not going to give it away. You can tell the rest of that story. Am I right so far? Bhajan Singh?
Yeah, you know it better than me.
Well, if anybody wants to go, messengerfromtheguru'shouse.com, that's the City Singh Saab story. It's our story too. And so his story is there. All of that is there. You want to say a few words?
Sure. It's inspiring to me to look back on those times because it defines what follows like 35, 40 years afterwards to where you are now. And it is always interesting when your path of faith gets challenged because it makes you introspect on a very, very fundamental level. And it's been a wonderful process, and I wouldn't change any of it. Not everybody will agree with that, but that's for another conversation.
So we're all finding our faith is being challenged, and you have no regrets about that.
No, I don't. Life unfolds as it should.
Waheguru.
If you are living consciously.
Ah, there's the rub. Very good. Okay.
One's even got to think about that, because having embarked on a life of living consciously, it's hard to think of not living consciously. So you might just say things because that's how you live it, but for other people, it might sound like a very exotic language.
True. You want to start off? Somebody's got to start off. You want to start off telling your story about your first yoga class and all that?
Sure. So it starts really with a girlfriend that I had when I was a very foolish and misguided young man, and she was going to regular yoga classes every week, and she said, you should come to yoga classes. And I had never been confronted by the subject. Yoga? Okay, it's kind of something on the periphery of my life. I know the word. And I said to her, no, I'm not ready for that, but one day I'll do yoga. And I often think to myself, why did I answer like that? It was almost an involuntary answer. And then one day, some years later, I was walking along a street in Durban, which is on the east coast of this country. And there in a shop window was an introductory yoga course on offer. And I attended that. And pretty much from the first class, it defined the rest of my life. There was such inherent beauty in how the topic was approached that I just wanted more, and I wanted more, and I wanted deeper. So at the time, I was still very much kicking and flailing, a very unwilling participant in the conscripted military, apartheid military here in South Africa. And unlike a lot of people who just up and left the country and just said, forget it, I'm not going through that, I went into that training, and it was supposed to be a certain time period. And before I'd reached that time period to signal the end of my duty, they had increased the requirement and increased it and increased it. And eventually I said, that's it, I'm out of here. And I said to my family, if you want to see me again, you have traveling to do, because I'm not coming back. I can't come back to this human abuse that they put you through in the name of national defense. It's not, it's human abuse. And I was relating to my family recently, my thoughts for the future. And excuse me for digressing, but I tend to do this a lot. My thoughts for the future is that we will never know the Aquarian age until we stop making war. Because when they put a rifle in your hand and they tell you to put a bayonet on the end of it, and they tell you to aim it at that sack of straw over there with a human form on it and shove it in with the most amount of anger you can conjure up, to shove it into a surrogate human being, what can we expect? What can we expect from men? That is how they are reared. That is how we are reared. That's the generational culture that we have brought with us, going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So I left here and I started doing my yoga before I left, and I was doing it along the way. And just one day sitting, let me take one step back, sitting on a beach on the east coast of Brazil. At the time, I was looking for a ride on a sailing boat. And it was Christmas Day, it was 1983. And I had set out from South Africa with very little money. You know, one can't relate amounts then to amounts now, because it's crazy. But I had a relatively small amount of money. And there I was on this beach a year after arriving in South America, and I still had the same amount of money in my pocket. And I worked and I played and I played and I worked. And a year later, I was sustained. And there I was sitting, and the quote from Jesus in the Bible that says, "Behold the lilies in the field, never do they sweat and toil, and your heavenly Father takes care of them. How much more will he care for you, the greatest of his creation?" And for me, that was the real start of faith. And the decisions that I made and the directions that I took were simply based on what energy I was getting from the source. I was telling the mind to get out of it, to just observe, to feel, to act. And so there I was, sitting in the cockpit of a sailing boat at anchor off the island called Union Island. And I'm just sitting there enjoying the half light. And there I see a lady walking on the shore, looking like a complete princess, just majestic. And I said to my skipper, "Excuse me, I need to go and meet somebody." And I went ashore and I went from place to place until I saw her sitting there. And I walked up to her and I said, "I have to meet you." The next day, she introduced me to Kundalini Yoga. And from the time I started doing it, there was no stopping. And it was quite by chance that I landed up in Los Angeles about 6 or 7 months later, and was introduced to a class of Kundalini yoga there in the San Fernando Valley in Northridge at the local university, part of the adult education faculty. And it was then that I heard that the international headquarters were in Los Angeles. And so I used to attend lectures there. And from the very first lecture, it was so evident to me how he was teaching about the Aquarian age, how he was teaching about the empowerment of women. Because that it was another thing that I felt before I left South Africa. I felt this incredible imbalance between me and my countrymen because of apartheid, and between me and women because of many failed relationships, and failed in retrospect only because I was a very foolish young man, and obviously brought up within the patriarchy and needing a lot to learn. And when I sat in that lecture and saw the way he sought to create a masculine-feminine balance by teaching women about their power, it was something I really, really enjoyed. And it was so amazing to me to be at a gathering like that, that was predominantly women, because the energy is just different. If you're not looking for something out of it, just if you are content to just be in the space. And I attended there for as long as my visa allowed. I was there for the Tuesday evening lecture class, and then I would stay over and attend the Wednesday morning yoga class just near the house of Guru Ramdas. And then my visa was approaching expiry, and so I sought an interview with Yogi Bhajan. And I must add that at that first class that I was at, I had seen somebody gifting him with a red rose in a little plastic tube. And other people were giving gifts. Some were wrapped up, some you could see, some you couldn't see. But the rose was there. And at the end of class, when we were chanting the final mantra, I had my eyes closed and I felt something hit me on the head, and I heard it fall on the floor. So I looked on the floor to see what it was, and it was that rose. Now, I wasn't sitting anywhere near the front, so he had a pretty good dart throwing arm. Or he just threw it into the crowd and it happened to hit me. I mean, who knows? But I looked up and he was just looking straight at me, and we just acknowledged each other's presence. You know, I was completely new to that. Protocols in terms of humility had not reached my lexicon yet. They had not landed. That really only arrived when I had the opportunity to go to the Golden Temple and bow my head before the Guru, because that's a seminal experience. That is beautiful on just every level. And I think people have to absolutely, if they have not already, put that on the bucket list. You know, it's got to be experienced. And yes, I sought an appointment with Yogi Bhajan because I was needing to leave the US. And he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "South Africa." And he just looked at me with that piercing gaze that he had. And he said, "Go back and start an ashram." And I've equated it to somebody, of course it's a male analogy, to somebody really just punching me hard on the tip of my nose and kind of flooring me, because it was just not on the menu. Not at all. But just a little voice very deep inside me said, "You can't run away from your destiny." And where those sorts of little voices came from, I can't explain, because it was almost, I had to look at myself and say, where did you come up with that? And so I then sought a meeting with Shakti Parakar to, and this was under the guidance of my teacher there, Aradhana Singh, who I think still lives in New Mexico, though we haven't had contact for a while. So I spoke to Shakti Parakar and I said, you know, here I am, just attended a handful of classes and I must go and start an ashram. She says, no, what he means is learn to teach it and then go and teach yoga. So I checked into the Altadena ashram and did a very intense sadhana there for pretty close to 8 weeks. And my feet haven't touched the ground since.
Waheguru.
Waheguru, yeah.
That's a good intro. Shall we pause it a little bit, or you want to keep going?
Well, I guess it just to a point. So I'll keep going briefly. All right.
Sure.
So I had the intention with the visa expiring, and I'd had the intention that I wanted to land up in India one day. So I thought I'd go and look into a kibbutz in Israel and then make my way overland to India. And I went to the UK and I checked out the little ashram in London. No, I first went to Frankfurt. I flew to Frankfurt and I checked it out in Frankfurt. I checked it out in Basel, in Switzerland. I went to Paris and then I went across to London. And then after 11 days of being in London, and you know, most of what I was doing was with a backpack and hitchhiking. And just after 11 days in the UK and just being permanently wet from all the rain, you know, I'm a naive South African, so we have 300 and something days of sunlight a year, very little rain. And I just couldn't handle the level of that dampness, and I just hopped on a plane and I flew back to South Africa. And within a week, I was teaching classes here. That was middle of 1985.
Waheguru.
I'll catch my breath.
Waheguru, thank you. Beautiful story. There's so many books. There could be a book about you. I told Sohan Kaur she needs to have a movie about her, but one thing at a time. So thank you. We'll pause it. Could you put on your mute there? It's pretty quiet where you are. I don't think there's much noise. Sohan's in a noisy neighborhood. But go ahead, Sohan Kaur. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as I wrote a little bit about my personal story, when I start this path, I recognized that it was pretty much also connected with something that it was inside myself since childhood. I remember very well when I was a child, like 7 years old, having this thought that I need to find the exit. So this exit, how to find? I used to read a lot of books, yes, esotericism, archaeology, whatever thing, UFOs, it can come in my hand. I was very child, very curious. But I got this imagination that I will find a book that will give me all the knowledge and will show me the exit. So I start my university. I start with my studies of anthropology. Then, well, it's kind of a journey until the moment I get in touch with the teachings. And when I start to practice Kundalini Yoga, I did it by myself also because there were no Kundalini Yoga centers here. So I started my practice in a park, 4 a.m. in the morning, doing Navi Kriya. It was raining outside, also raining inside of me, a lot of crying to do. But I started to see that the practice was working out. And I used to also be able to read the teachings of Yogi Bhajan. And the way he talked, it just really got into my heart. And it became like my medicine. Because at that time I was in a lot of pain. I was very highly stressed. For many things that happened during my career, during my studying as an anthropologist. Then I finished and I started to work in analysis of conflict with a teacher, with a professor in an institute of Relaciones Internacionales, foreign relations. That's another chapter of the story that led me to search for some medicine, for something that could explain also what it was going on with me, because it started an awakening very early before I started to practice Kundalini yoga. So maybe I make a long story, because for me it's very hard to explain my connection with the cities in South, and also the whole thing with Kundalini Yoga and Sikh Dharma without touching that chapter of my life. But we make it in short way. It was like it was like this necessity to find truth. I think this is a very common thing among all of us. See, a person, actually Yogi Bhajan said, any spiritual person is a person who is looking for honesty, for the truth. Yes. At that time I was looking for the truth of what happened in my country in relation with violence. Yes, the killings on some peasants, leaders, who actually won a Nobel Peace Prize, the alternative Nobel Prize. They travel to Sweden and they give them that prize in the time of Gorbachev. That time he received the Nobel Peace Prize, and these peasants from Colombia, actually, who were able to achieve peace among guerrillas and paramilitaries who were confronted, they received this alternative Nobel Prize. So these people were very special. They were very simple people, only peasants, but they have their own wisdom. Unfortunately, they were killed. Somebody was inside the organization and they were killed. So because I met these people and I was so surprised at how this thing could happen, I started to do my research, and later I go beyond in my master degrees thesis about paramilitarism. Anyway, but when I finished my research, my thesis, I have a very mystical experience. I have a vision of a divine being. That and I think the reason why I got this blessing actually was not only because I was searching for truth, but also at some point I was facing death. When we face death, we cross a border, and this border also allow us to go beyond our own ego, our own schemes. So I got this darshan, this blessing, and with this blessing, the Kundalini, that's my explanation, rise up, and many things start to happen inside of me, visions that occur later on. I was very academic, huh? At that time I forget about God, even though I have a very strong religious education in a Catholic school since childhood. Mm. But anyway, so I got into these teachings and I found the citizens up because I was searching for an explanation. What is going on with me? Why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, listening, watching these things that occur in the future. That shocked me totally, my rational structure. I was thinking, man, maybe I'm getting mental, I'm getting crazy, I need a special treatment, whatever. But at the same time, I was feeling something very beautiful. Yes, I was getting in touch with my true being, with my soul. And that realization happened when I finally had the opportunity to travel to Sweden to study this conflict resolution. And in that place, I realized that a little bit more about my essence, and that I was totally doing something different that really was related with my essence. Yes. So when I come back, I left my PhD. I mean, I had the possibility to continue in that road. I come back and I say, okay, I need to find out what is going on. And by the grace of Guru, I found these teachings and I started practicing them. But something that is also similar to Master Bhajan Singh is that the word, the power of the word. See, he mentioned how the beautiful way they talk in the class touch his heart. In the same way, for me, I didn't have a teacher because there were no Kundalini yoga teachers at that time here in Bogota, in Colombia. So I only was able to read the teachings of Yogi Bhajan. But that was so beautiful. That was so touching. It really got into my soul and it was very healing. So my stress at that time, the thing that I didn't know what it was going on, because I didn't get the support from my colleagues, let's say it, in my work and my research, which was very important research. I was fired basically because I was telling the truth. But anyway, the teachings of the citizens have really become my medicine. So every day, reading, I was really hungry for that word, healing word. And I started to practice, and I was able to quit smoking. I was smoking a lot of cigarettes because I was full of anxiety. There were a bunch of emotions inside of me at that time. But the more I practiced, the more I read the teachings from Yogi Ji, the more I felt more peaceful. And then the vision came that I have to go to Mexico. It's like the same way. You see? And I was thinking, Mexico, oh God, this is a big deal for me at that time. Anyway, I found the certification program, the diplomado, but it was more because I wanted to get the certificate. That was not the real reason. I knew I have to travel to Mexico. I was actually told that I have to travel over there because I have a personal issue to solve over there with somebody, actually, who belong to the human rights organization, and I have a talk to have with this person, He was a high commissioner of human rights. It's another story, very, it's interesting because the guru, let's say it's everywhere, we know that, but he uses some people that catches our attention in such a way that awakens in us love or something that connects us with our soul. And for me, this High Commissioner of Human Rights, who actually was in Colombia for several years, that was like the port on earth that catch my attention. And because of that, I get into Kundalini Yoga because I said, if I don't have anything that will save my life, yes, to deal with this issue is gonna be my end time. I'm going to be finished. It's very hard to explain that, but let's make it simple. So because of this person, I traveled to Mexico and I started my certification course, my training, but for me it was more for healing. 1 year and a half, I had this beautiful opportunity to be in Mexico with the Mexican people, with the Sangat over there, to know about Sikhism, which I didn't have no clue about Sikhism. In Colombia, there are no Sikhs, still today. There are no Sikhs, no Gurwaras. So 1 year and a half, and I received so many blessings. I felt much peaceful, and I was able to, Guru helped me in such a way to solve this issue with this person. It was, actually, he showed me, one day I was working in one Kundalini Yoga center in Mexico, and I have this feeling like I need to go to this place where I know this man is there. It was like some energy pulling me. When I saw him, I just have to see what I have to see. See, that was it. So that was very, very great. I felt the Guru was very loving, very, very caring. At that time, Yogi Bhajan, that was 2003, 2004. Yogi Bhajan was about to leave his body, his human body. And I remember that I listened to all these Kundalini Yoga teachers, that they were meeting the cities in South, and they were making a lot of prayers, so he didn't go. But I had one dream with the cities in South. And in that dream, I remember that it was not a dream, it was a vision in a tantra in Guadalajara, my first tantra. And in that tantra, I got this vision, and he sent me the message, and he said, basically, I'm leaving my human body. I just couldn't believe it. Then later on, I told some other friend of mine, I got this message from Yogi Bhajan, and some couple weeks later, we all were, doing the meditations, saying thank you to Citizen South. So my connection with the Citizen South was not personal, but it was more from soul to soul. And I think that this is a more pure and, let's say it, easy relation to handle than a body-to-body connection. Because in a body-to-body connection, we can get trapped very easily with the human form, yes, and the limitations. For me, the Citizen South always has been not a man. I never see him as a man, and for me, he's not a man. He's total spiritual master. And so let's say that there are many stories. I have no stories to share, like from body to body experience, but from soul to soul. And I can tell that all of these experiences, all these stories, are so true, you know. It's not imagination. It's not imagination. For me, that was very healing. That was understanding that, as the teaching said, when the when you have the darshan, you have the vision, you have the blessing, yes, of Guru, because maybe you are searching for truth, or you are doing something in an excellent way, or because you are willing to face death, yes, as the Guru told us, yes, we pass the frontier between this world, the illusion, and what is real, and we cannot see with our external eyes. So there are so many things, but that was one very beautiful moment when I feel that I connect more with the citizens of. Later, when I come back to Colombia and I start teaching, in my sadness, the messages continue being delivered by the citizens up to me. And in one sadhana, he told me, I'm never going to let you down. Nunca te voy a dejar. Oh, that, always speaking in a very short way, but right to the heart. And that's why I am, totally loyal. And especially in these circumstances, in these moments with all these situations, with the AOB and stuff, well, there is no question about it, there is no doubt about my master. So, about my personal story, I think that will summarize. Later, I've been teaching for 16 years, and later I had the blessing also to travel to India. I've been there 3 times.
Waheguru.
Waheguru,
Yeah.
yes.
Should we pause? I see we have somebody. Shall we take a little pause? I see someone else has arrived in South Africa. You see in the back? Pritam Harikar, Satnam.
Satnam.
B. Gates.
Gut, danke.
We have some German audience here too. Right, nice to see you.
Who's there from Germany?
I just see we have some audience from Germany also.
Nice.
Right?
Are we on?
Mhm.
Have I got the mic? Hey, Guru Fata, shall I share?
I think it's your turn.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you got here. Tell us what you can tell us.
Well, first of all, thank you for the invite. So it's very special to have these meetings, and I started with Kundalini Yoga 40 years ago, let's say 39 in 1981. And even with everything that's going on at the moment, I would say that I'm deeply appreciative of my time that I have studied in this lineage. So, I could say that we all are dyed in the wool, in this practice. We are sort of shot through. It's like like when you make a weave, there's something that has gotten deeply into that. And in 1981, that was a long time ago. The Sri Singh was in his 50s then and traveled a lot. And, there was a lot of vitality around our meetings. And even though it was already more than 10 years into his teaching, it felt like the sort of second flush of people who got sort of inspired by this yoga. And I lived in Germany at the time, so you could say that was really far away from where everything was happening in a mainstream way. So it often felt like the communications were more through the subtle body. And for me, a few experiences stand out. First of all, when I was 16, I grew up in Indonesia and in Spain. So, my family history was quite varied, and my family lived overseas, and my father worked there. And living in Germany was not, it is my mother tongue, but it was not a very familiar environment for me. But I remember when I was 16, there was a TV documentary, and it said, the title of the documentary was The Sikhs of Lahore. The Sikhs of Lahore. Okay. And I felt this, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I went, I have to see this, I have to see this, I have to see this, the Sikhs of Lahore. And I was 16, and I watched the documentary, and it was totally boring. And I just went, yeah, what was that all about, right? But I knew that was somehow the call or the connection for me, and that felt really beautiful. And then in 1981, I had been studying in Malta, and I came back to Germany, and I was starting to waitress at the Golden Temple restaurant. And my teacher then, or basically the boss of the restaurant, was Sohan Singh, and he said, well, you can come for free class because it helps us to be a good team with each other. And my first class was just sort of like the deal was sealed, I wanted to be there. And then 2 weeks later, he was teaching in Amsterdam, and I said to the ashram directors, this is what we called them at the time, I said, I don't care what I do, I polish the silver, I clean the toilets, but I have to really be there when, wherever he stays, I have to be there and see what that is all about. And then from that moment on, I lived in the ashram, and I was the ashram secretary. And I used to go every year. We'd go to solstice and ladies camp, and then we'd organize yoga festival. So it was that sort of like, we were on a roll for all those events. And then we alternated White Tantric in Hamburg or in Amsterdam, and we were always the sort of hosting committee. And when I went to the US, I would always sign up for that seva of being in Yogi Bhajan's house and doing either kitchen seva or cleaning seva or transcription seva. That was also what I did, and what felt very beautiful, because to transcribe felt like, it was an expanded experience of the lecture that you had just been in. And it was funny because, Yogi Bhajan's English is a second language English, and so is mine. And I had an easier time transcribing him than a first language English speaker, especially because I had grown up in the Far East. And I remember that in 1986, there was a point in time where I was so tempted to be part of his household, which means working at the ranch. And I remember making the decision to not do that, because I felt that the voltage there, the energy there, the voltage was simply too high. And at the time I felt I was going to combust in that space. And I actually berated myself and went like, whoa, you don't have the capacity to be, with that person who you are so indebted to. And I berated myself around that. And yet I actually think that, there was also, that was also like a little moment of dosing the energy from the Siri Singh sub. So I have lately also read more of what people have experienced, and I would say that my heart goes out to each and every person who has somehow felt overwhelmed or overloaded, or possibly even badgered, or kind of like overworked in their psyche. My conclusion around the Siri Singh sub is completely that he was a master, and I also remember that he used to say that he was extremely lonely in his own psyche, and I also appreciate that. Certainly one of a kind. So what happened then, that was like summer 86, and then immediately afterwards in August was the yoga festival in France, and that is when Yogi Bhajan introduced Bhajan and I to each other, and as these things went, much glee and much delight, and much mirth and much humor, because there had been little conversations with him and me whether I was ever going to find somebody, or whether I thought I was ever going to get married, because in those days we basically relied on the recommendation of the master. And then that alliance, or our to-be marriage, then meant my job or my mission had changed to coming to South Africa, and that was it was really a beautiful job to take that on and to teach here. And we had natural food businesses, so our work revolved around natural foods, teaching people how to eat healthily, teaching supplements, eating cookery classes, making tofu, those kind of things, and teaching yoga. And I remember that for me, I can say that on some level it was difficult, because I thought I was far away when I was in Germany, and now I was further away, and my contact actually was much less. And yet I feel that the foundations of spiritual teachings that Yogi Bhajan extolled were very clear, and in our days in the ashram, that's the lifestyle that we lived. So there was a foundation that was laid. And yet there are things that we have to unpack and digest in a way that feels most sincere to us. So if Yogi Bhajan says something like that, drop your neuroses. Okay, sir, I don't understand that. Well, go to your highest part and then drop your neuroses. Do it already, get it done. And still you don't actually understand it, and you should be entitled to not understand it, because somehow whatever your process is, you actually cannot, you can bask it to a point, but your basking should be just to keep your energy and your projection high. Your basking cannot be your perpetual mode. You can bask a little bit, but ultimately you cannot bask. You have to be completely sincere in your process. So, there are parts of how he taught that may have made complete sense to him, but for us, more common earthlings, it's a process of unpacking it in a manner that is resonant and honest and truthful for you. So, my conclusion is there is no shortcuts. You can only work on your process as sincere and with as much honesty and humility as you can. That would be the good process. And in 2004, I went to Khalsa Council, and it was October, and Yogi Bhajan left his body on a Wednesday. And on Sunday, he spoke at Gurdwara via the intercom, just via an audio transmission. And it was a very short lecture, and it was very, very touching, because his voice was so soft and quite, faint and a little bit slurring and, belabored. And after the Gurdwara, I had a subtle body experience of him where he said to me, pray for me. And it just about freaked out my psyche, because I just went like, how is it even possible? You are my teacher, and, you're asking me to pray for you. And it put me through a big spin, because I was aware of the fact that he was busy leaving. So, I found that very difficult. And yet it was, I've had in my life exactly two experiences where I've had that subtle body connection. One was when he had surgery, and we were at ladies camp, and we were chanting for an hour or so Ramadasa Sasi Sohang, and I happened to be leading that particular meditation. And after about an hour, I had this flash in my third eye of him, and he winked at me, with that cutest humor, and I was like, whoa, But then I went, okay, that must have been the signal, and I'm truly not given to, such a big, subtle body, etc. But it was, like it was like that, like a cut. And then 5 minutes later, somebody said, "Gee, you can stop the meditation now. The Sirsing sub is fine," So it was completely untrue. I just loved it, and I also feel that many times, people have said that nowadays we teach the yoga a tiny bit differently, like a little bit less. Some exercises can be a little bit shorter. But then when he taught the yoga, it was like he released some Kundalini energy into the group, so there was a definite experience at the time. And where I'm at now is I am still reading people's experiences, and I have no choice but to be deeply empathetic to how a person or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20 have possibly not been able to negotiate their relationship. And I feel very, very sad about that. So my process with what has happened with the Sirsing sub and the information that has come out and the revelations that have come out in parentheses is a great state of there has been a very long time has been a feeling of, nope, I cannot let any shadow fall on my teacher, like a cognitive dissonance and a resistance to that. And at this stage I am realizing that some of the things that happened at close quarters were not okay, and I'm a little bit grieving for all of us. And at the very same time, I can say that, my life as a yogi continues, and I'm deeply grateful for the path I chose, or how the path itself also chose me. But I'm very open to how some people were affected, and some of the more human sides of the Sirsing sub, and possibly how some reality check may have gone out the door. And as I say that, and I feel that sense of grief for us all, my grief actually includes him as well, and what may have happened. So it's a mixed bag, but I feel very strongly that there is a time for us to be able to reconcile polarities within ourselves, and that if anything, they help us to expand and widen the heart. So, I will not for a moment say, oh, well, that thing happened with that person because she was nuts, or because she had a weak nervous system, or because she is deceitful or so. I will not put it into that corner, because I do not have the right to do that. If I know a person and I can have a conversation with her or him, then that may put me in a different position. But until such time, I do not have the right to judge another person, or to disqualify their statement. So that is where I'm at, and I am reconciling a huge polarity within myself. And I might say one more thing that for a very long time has deeply, deeply convinced me of the integrity, the unassailable integrity of the Sirsing sub. We had a man in the ashram who ended up sleeping with a yoga student, and it was brought to the Sri Singh Sab's attention, who had come to the ashram like around that time. He always used to visit us in winter around February. And he just about took that man apart. He absolutely took him apart. And I remember what he said. He said, she came looking for God and you gave her a fuck. And, you know, he told us what would happen spiritually to a person who did that. And this man was happy and great, happy in parentheses, and grateful for the instruction and for the direction. He did not, he completely took it into his psyche. And it was like a useful and bitter medicine that he experienced. And we actually, we all stood by each other, and we also stood by him, you know, even though this was in a way quite shameful behavior. And because of, you know, that conversation and that teaching moment of the Sri Singh Sab versus this man, I actually rejected any mischief. And yeah, I won't repeat what I said earlier because, you know, I sort of explained where I stand.
Well,
Yeah.
this is hard. I can see it's hard for you to, but you have a lot of courage and you're putting it out there, and I think everybody appreciates that. Thank you.
You know, Guru Fata, I'd actually asked, I had questioned whether my story would be welcome in this group, but I really feel that there's a percolating of a very variegated story that we are relating with. And as one friend of mine said, she said, we all have the capacity for being victim and victor in this in some ways. You know, we all were at the receiving end of learning and studying. And the capacity of a person on the spiritual path is gauged and evaluated by their tenacity, right? It's like the seeker has to have a certain tenacity to pursue and to go through obstacles. So, you know, I will concede that it's okay to experience some things that challenge your faith. And at the same time, it is also possible that the seeker himself or herself has exposed themselves too much to a teaching, and that some things have kind of hammered or, you know, knocked the seeker sideways. So, and I'm not sure if that is integrous on the spiritual path. You know, in this day and age, we all go into, you know, HR and relationships, and was there actual any miscommunication at work? You know, were people like, was there sexualized conversation? And so it's very, very important in a normal human context, and we're very, very aware of that. And you have to ask yourself, do those rules, are they different in the spiritual realm? And I'm not sure, but it can happen that a person gets more than what they were able to digest. So, Waheguru.
Yeah. In light of that, one thing that came to my mind, I had a hunch, how you were telling me pretty much what you were going to share with us, and I was thinking also how Sri Singh Sab, if he had been a different kind of a teacher, he might have just left some people alone who were very fragile, you know, and said, well, this is a really hard path, you know, I'm just going to shut up and let this person do their thing. But also I recall him saying that in his previous lifetime, he had done that. He said, this person I can't teach. But his karma, he said afterwards, that he has to teach everybody. Maybe you remember that story. So he did his best, but it was hard for everybody. Sohan Kaur?
Yes, I would like to share something that when all these allegations and all these things start to happen, this year, in meditation, I asked to Yogi Bhajan, to Yogi Ji, what do you think about all this is happening? And he told me two things. First, he said, let them sink. Déjalos que se hundan. Let them sink. Second, he said, they didn't learn anything. That's it. And I think that in this space and in our inner space, one very relevant question is, what is that we should have learned? ¿Qué es lo que debimos haber aprendido until this moment, after all the teachings he has given us? I think this is a good point. And from my point of view, my humble point of view, what I can say is, and first, a yogi, and he said it so many times, especially at the beginning of his teachings in America, when he was giving us the Adi Shakti mantra. He explained very well. He said, we have two ways. There are two personalities in life, and there are two ways of life. One, either we can expand our ego to the infinite, or we melt our ego into the infinite. And these are totally opposite perspectives. In my humble opinion, a yogi has, in order to realize himself as a yogi, has to be able to melt his ego into the infinite. Otherwise, it's not going to be unite with the infinite. Unite with the master, which is part of the golden chain. So, in the 16 years after Yogi Bhajan left his human body, all the things that continue running in Triesho, Cree, etc. My humble point of view, and maybe this one doesn't like to other people, but I share in a humble way. It might go in the opposite way, in the Piscean way, structure, not in the Aquarian way as Yogi Bhajan taught. And now that we are already in Aquarius, in the Aquarius age, and we have to do this big jump of elevate our consciousness, and we are facing so many oppositions, polarizations, and everything. We all, everybody, has to start to melt his ego into the infinite. This is the big test of these times, and this is the test of Shaktipat. And I think that all this situation is part of a Shaktipat state. So, just I will leave it there to open up the conversation. There are other points, but I will say like this so far.
You know, we could, for the next almost 2 hours, we could go on and discuss and have a very rich academic discussion, we could say, or a psychological analysis. Well, I will prefer is for posterity. I mean, let posterity analyze too. You know, people in 100 years are maybe going to look at this and say, well, what really happened? What's the truth? But I think more valuable for posterity, and perhaps also for just next week and for today, is you have all had some meaningful experiences. So many people have run away from this Dharma. Some people went to one yoga class. They didn't even last the whole class. They ran away. This is too hard. Some people did 10 classes. Some people did 20, and then they left. you guys have been sticking around. You're doing it in Bogota. You have no social support whatsoever. It's all subtle. It's subtle. It's ethereal. You guys are in South Africa, for heaven's sake, so far removed, and you didn't run away. I would think it would be very enriching to hear about your the experiences you had that confirmed you in your faith, the meaningful experiences. I mean, South Africa is an interesting place, unlike Bogota. Similarly, a lot of trauma, but because of civil unrest and guerrilla warfare and God knows. But South Africa is a little interesting because there's also a significant Indian community there. I don't know a big Sikh community, not a turban community, but still there's an Indian culture there. And it must have been interesting for you as pioneers to show up with your turbans and do your thing. So I'm sure there must be some fascinating stories. And then I know that Bhajan Singh has his story about all the stuff being stolen. That's a fantastic story. Bhajan Singh, are you still there?
Yeah.
Let's hear a male voice.
Okay. I was once walking down the street. We had our store in a very villagey environment, and we knew all the shopkeepers along that street. And I did my regular trips to the bank every day.
Now, what city is that, or what town is that?
That is a suburb of Johannesburg.
Johannesburg. Okay.
Yeah, we lived there. We lived there for a long time until we left to come and live a more rural lifestyle, a more sustainability-based lifestyle. I was walking down the street and a car pulled up right next to me where I was walking along the sidewalk, and a guy stuck his head out the window and said, "Are you a guru?" And I mean, who's ever been asked a question like that? And I said, "No, not unless you're looking for one." It was so strange. But before we had our store, I was in South Africa alone teaching. I taught up to 13 classes a week, but I got to be honest, I couldn't sustain that. That's just over the top. And I had, in true style, I arrived back in South Africa with very little money in my pocket. It's always like that. Somehow I just have to have complete faith that I am sustained, that everything will be taken, not everything, but that I will be taken care of. So I had a little apartment, and I was working at the time for one of the very, very few vegetarian restaurants. I think possibly the only one at the time in Johannesburg. And the previous day I'd been walking, or a few days before that, I'd been walking along the street and being accosted by this almost hobo woman. And I mean, I hesitate to put that label on somebody because there are hobos who are full voluntary hobos. I mean, they like their lifestyle. They do not want to own anything, and they do not want a home. They want to be free to just move when they feel inspired to move. But she was quite smelly and asking if she could have a place to wash herself. So I let her come to my apartment, and she washed herself, and I gave her some food. And then I said, I can't, I need to carry on with my life now. So I would appreciate it if we could part company at this point. And it was that same woman that then came back when I was at work with a partner, because I subsequently saw them on the street, and forced the lock on my door and stole my guitar, every single cassette that I had. You know, that was the time of cassettes. This is all pre-internet. We used to have auto-reverse cassette players. Yeah. So they stole that. They stole every single cassette I had. And there I was trying to teach with no backup music at all. Nothing. A week later, and bearing in mind that those were the snail mail days, where if something was sent from the US, it would take 3 weeks to reach. But less than a week after my break-in, a cassette arrived from Yogi Bhajan. Just, he had said to, I queried it later, and he had just said to somebody, send this to Bhajan Singh in South Africa, and handed them a cassette. So having had everything stolen, within a week, the collection started again, thanks to Yogi Bhajan himself. You know. And so the faith continues. The universe is listening and watching.
Yeah, you went to the yoga festival, and somebody said, Bhajan Singh needs a wife. And that got sorted out pretty quickly too, didn't it?
Yeah.
Where there's a need, often Yogi Bhajan will see the need is fulfilled.
Yeah, he had the knack of dropping bombs.
Yeah, love bombs we call them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Sat Simran Kaur sitting behind me at the appointment at the chateau in Losh, or at the chalet in Losh, where the European Yoga Festival was happening. And it was my first time seeing him after I had come back to South Africa. And he said to me, how's it going? And I said, it's fine, but I feel that it needs some female energy there, because I just don't have that nurturing side that can spend a lot of time with people and listen to all their stories and be a counselor to them. There was too much that I needed to do, to build, to I mean, his instruction had been go and open an ashram. So, I mean, for me, it was all my sights were set on how that was going to come about. And I said it needed some nurturing energy. And Sat Simran was sitting behind me and said, oh, he needs a wife. And he suddenly got this very mischievous look on his face and rolling his eyes up and saying, do we have anybody in mind here? Pritam Harika, come and stand next to this man. Stand up, Bhajan. Come, stand next to this man. Let me look at you. Okay, go out and discuss it. Let me know what you think. And so we've been married for a couple of decades, many decades by now.
Right. You had a good intuition there.
Yeah. Certainly.
Thank you for sharing that. Any ladies want to go on next? Pritam Harika, are you preparing yourself? We're trying to figure out which lady's going to go next.
Okay. So one of the things that he asked me to do at the time was to translate the Siddhi Guru Granth Sahib into German, and I think I might be at long last tackling that that request. And the way that came about is that I would always translate the hukum into German every morning in the little Gurdwara after sadhana, and then one day he happened to be there and he admonished the ashram leaders and said, why have you not recorded everything that she has said so far? So, you know, that I mean, we were all so in awe of him somehow that, you know, that would always kind of assail you like out of the blue. You go like, whoa, but I'm just doing my job, you know, or I'm just doing what I know how to do, you know. But that felt very nice because he said, you know, it would just flow. It would just flow through. Yeah, I think this reasons that was larger than life, you know. How do you pack you know, a person of that magnitude? I mean, you know, even his physical stature, you know, even for a Northern European, that would be huge, you know, never mind for an Indian person, you know, very large. And I do realize that on a human level that there was a fair amount of conflict, which I am reconciling to acknowledge, you know, that even when you're a master, you may not be free of personal motives. And it's really interesting that he often said that he had issues and that he was just a normal human being. So and at the time we did not, speaking for myself, I would have said, well, he's just being humble. And then I realized that he was maybe self-reflecting. So, and yet I think for every student there is maybe also a juncture where the student can say, where the student can refuse. But maybe, you know, as spiritual seekers, we're also in that place where we want to pursue a path with everything we got. There's also that. Yeah, and then he also gave me a couple of books to write. He gave the titles, and
How are they doing?
well, I just created that one book, that Kundalini Yoga fan, the one with the pictures, you know, yoga and pictures.
Kundalini Yoga fan?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
how can we get it?
Satnam Versand in Germany is distributing it. I'll just show it. It's a book in.
Yogi gave quite a few book projects. Last week we had Gurminder. He has 3 book projects. He hasn't started. It's good to see one book that's finished. Oh, it's like a fan. That's what they call
it. It's called the Kundalini Yoga fan.
You can fan yourself with it if you need, huh?
If your Kundalini energy is getting a little too much, yeah.
Plus, you're a big fan of Kundalini Yoga too.
Eh?
I don't know how it translates into German or Spanish, but you are a fan of Kundalini Yoga.
Exactly.
There we go.
So it's quite minimalist, you know. You mostly have pictures with some symbols on it, and it makes the practice very, very visceral.
Yeah.
So I did this in 2008.
Wow. Who did the art?
And somebody from here, just a beautiful person. And I think Angat, who's on this call, she's translating it into Chinese. Shout out to Angat. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Halftime is in about 3 minutes. We'll take a little break. Sohan Kaur, you want to speak for about 5 minutes? Are you doing any books? You doing any books in Spanish?
No.
Not yet?
Not really. Not really. I wrote 2 theses and and that was it. But no. I think I have a lot of material though translated in Spanish from the Citizen South, and actually I think this is the only thing that I like to read. So focus on the teachings, but no, I just want to say in these 5 minutes that the Citizen South is so present, so alive. During the classes, there are several stories from the students also, who also have been able to experience his blessings. Yes, I remember some years ago one student told me that what she saw, no? Like when I was starting to give the class, he saw like an energy displaying. You see, start to explain his mystical experience. But in all these years teaching, he has been very, very present, and it has been very beautiful to listen to the students. Not all, obviously. Actually, I think that love is the condition to stick on this path and also to be able to be received. Yes, this is devotion, definitely is the key point. So the people who are more open, and actually this openness comes from our need. When we are in very difficult situations, huh? The people open up more to the teachings and they receive the blessing. And in a personal way, there is a very moving story. My father was in the hospital and he was passing away. He was passing away. He he didn't believe in all these things at all, but he was very respectful. And when we were in the room, only he and me in the hospital, he told me, "Who is this man? Very tall, with turban, with white turban and beard, next to you."
Oh, wow.
At that time, Yogi Bhajan had passed away. He had left his body because my father passed like in 2008. So, wow, that was such a blessing. That was such a blessing. Later on, I talked with Pritam Pal Singh, a teacher from Chile. Actually, he's from Chile, but he has been living for so many years in Mexico. And it was a coincidence. He traveled to Colombia at that time. And I explained to him about what happened. And it was so beautiful because he said to me that when we belong to this path, we are covered, and our generations are also covered. See? So my father was passing away, and the citizens have come to take him, you see, to help him to take him. So, when you have this type of experiences, how you cannot stick in this path? How you cannot, face whatever? Yes? Because there is nothing else. It's a totally spiritual father. It's a totally spiritual father, and he's one with the Guru. I totally believe so. And so far, I will tell this. In India, I found other things very interesting, but we have only 5 minutes.
Okay. Maybe we'll just find the music here. Our theme song is All Around the World. Find it here. Okay, maybe you can hear it. So we're going to take 5 minutes. Take a break. Brothers and sisters all around the world, into each other. Chain is his word, and they're bound for the world. Young love, the ones of the good. Yes, that they pray, and we're all around the world. All around the world. The word of the truth is to be heard. All around the world. Brothers and sisters, all singing together, one voice to be heard, and our soul has awakened, rejoice inside. We know each morning the good grace side.
my eternal is never time. His word begins to be heard, singing all around the world, all around the world. Word of the truth begins to be heard, all around the world. Brothers and sisters, all around the world, shake up the moon, the banners unfurled, and we're sailing together. The water's so blue, each night a harbor that we're destined to, sailing all around the world, all around the world. Shake on, banners of mercy, all around the world, singing all around the world.
Satnam. Oh, we just lost our translator. Chats. Let's see if you have chats here. Any questions? Any? Oh, all right. Are you reading the chats? You see we have chats? Oh, you read the chat. Okay, very nice. Okay, compliment to you. Okay, here we go. All around the world, coming back. Fantastic. Had Bhajan sing that?
He's coming back.
He's coming back. You have a dog there too, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, how sweet. Where are you? I mean, where geographically are you're way out in the country someplace, is it?
Yeah, and the yoga room at the farm.
Where's the farm?
The farm is in Robertson, which is about 160 kilometers northeast of Cape Town. Maybe you see this is what we call the South African Guru Ramdas.
South African Guru Ramdas.
Well, it was a painting that was made here. Yeah.
Wow.
I commissioned
What are the things in his beard? What are the things in his beard?
Well, when I was at the Golden Temple, I had this image that Guru Ramdas was praying for humanity, and he was overflowing and overwhelming, and he was crying tears, and they turned into flowers of blessing. So he's got a hipster beard with flowers in them.
You made the painting. You made the painting?
I commissioned it.
Commissioned it.
Made it.
Ah,
yeah.
It's beautiful. The South African Guru Ramdas.
Yes, and then our son started writing in Gurmukhi, Guru Guru Wai Guru Guru Ramdas Guru. So
on the painting.
Yes.
Oh wow. Wow, maybe you could get some copies made of it. Get a really good photograph made. Perhaps you can circulate it.
They are available, and I think there's some houses and
Satnam Verstand.
And Satnam has them as well. Yeah.
Okay. And where else?
Param Atma was from New Mexico, was reproducing them and selling them at yeah.
Lovely inspiration. Great. Bhajan Singh, you want to talk to us? You went to India. You said something about that, but you were previewing that. Can you tell us that story? Going to the Golden Temple?
Yeah. Excuse us, juggling a computer. The, as the body ages, the memory gets very selective. So I just have to put myself in that space briefly. So my first trip to India was when our son was 10 years old. And we made a joint decision as a family that that he would go to Miripiri. And so I took him there. And I stayed there for 3 weeks. And it was a very, very beautiful experience of being able to be so accessible to the Golden Temple and go there, not every day, but most days, to go there and bow. And, you know, the world has become a small place in the last few decades. And this was at a time when you could still stand in a fairly short queue and bow to the Guru at the Golden Temple. I understand that I haven't been back to India for a long time, but I understand the queues are pretty long these days. There's just lots and lots of people. And, you know, the blessing of being able to go there at 2:30 in the morning and wait for the doors to open and go and do seva wherever you can find seva that needs doing. It's wonderful. So, I mean, my first experience of Sikhs, I had been back in South Africa for a few months. We're talking 1985. And there were never any Sikhs in South Africa because the Indian population here came about through slavery, really, and it was disguised by the name indentured labor, but it was little more than slavery, and it was to do the labor in the sugarcane field, which were emerging on the East Coast, and the colonialists, or call them imperialists if you like, who were taking over South Africa from the indigenous population, could not get the local people to do the work, so they brought in the slaves and the indentured labor to do the work. And whatever Sikhs came, and Sikhs did come at that time, but they just merged into the greater Hindu community. And the Gurdwara that now exists in Durban, as I said earlier, on the East Coast, it was established and built by a man who, I believe, his grandfather was a Sikh, and he never, right from an early age, he had wanted to more embrace the religion of his father, and so he got a connection with it, built a Gurdwara, and we've had the honor of going there a couple of times to bow at the Gurdwara. But I was barely back here. There were still no Sikhs in the country. And I heard of a Sikh community in the neighboring country of Botswana. And the main town of Gaborone is not very far from Johannesburg. It's 3 or 4 hours. So I made telephone contact with the guys and arranged to go there for the weekend. When I got there, I had the directions, and I was looking for the street name, and there was a lot of roadworks on the side, and the street markers had all been dug up, and they were just standing there. So I couldn't find this marker. And then I saw the name and I thought, okay, this is the street. So I drove down the street and I had a number, a 4-digit number. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. And eventually what I realized was that the street I was in was a crescent. And so I came to the other end of the crescent. It was kind of doubling back on the way that I'd come in. And there was the street number. It had the same 4 digits, but the sequence was different. I thought to myself, it's unlike you, but did you take down the right number? Did you write it down correctly? Because there, sitting in the garden, is a family of Sikhs. So I park the car and I go there. I spend the night with them. I am given a bed, I'm given food, everything. The next morning, I go to Gurdwara and I discovered that I was with the wrong people.
Oh, the wrong people.
Yeah, this wasn't my host, but he was a very fine host. And I said to him, gee, you knew I was at the wrong house. Why didn't you tell me? He said, what for? You had your passport, the Guru sent you.
Oh my goodness.
For me, it was just so heart-opening. And the question then became, could I ever develop that level of hospitality that exists within cultural Sikhism? It was really, really beautiful.
Mm. Why? And they brought that with them all the way to Botswana.
Yeah, he was a Sikh of the Radhaswami lineage.
Yeah.
From,
Yeah.
and he had been seconded by the Indian Air Force, so he was actually a military man on a contract there for some years.
So how many Sikhs did you find there once you got your bearings?
At that stage, they didn't have a Gurdwara. They were still having it at somebody's house that had a spare room and had a Guru installed. But a few years later, when Pritam Harika and I were married and we went up there on another trip, it was to assist in the building of the Gurdwara. So there we were mixing concrete and pouring foundations and floors, and in the process of building Southern Africa's first Gurdwara, in fact.
What year?
That would have been about 88, early 88. Yeah.
And how many were there? What size was the Sangha?
I guess there was about 25 families.
Wow, families, 25 families. So it's about 100 people.
Yeah. And we've since, and we were founder members of the trust that was formed to build the Sikh temple in Johannesburg. And that is subsequently built, and it is very well attended. The weekend gatherings there's a lot of people.
It's a wave, you know. We're part of a wave, cutting edge. And I saw in Canada, now there's a lot of Sikhs in Eastern Canada. But I remember when there weren't. I remember in Toronto, when we had Yogi Ji come, there was one Gurdwara, little thing, and the 3 HO Sikhs from the surrounding area, and the Sikhs from India, about the same number. About the same number. It's not nearly that anymore, but it grew and it grew. I think one day in Bogota, I understand Colombia, the economy is doing very nice now. And so where the economy goes well, the Sikhs will come. They'll come and immigrate, and you will have your own Gurdwara one day.
You know that the Sikhs, well, if we talk about the Punjabi Sikhs only love USA, Canada. I mean, this is, you know that.
No, I know there's some in Venezuela. I know that. In Venezuela also.
Yeah, yes, in Ecuador, in Peru, very less. But we, in South America, it's like we do not exist for the rest of the world for some reason. Yes, America, this concept of America is just like focus all the attention in the northern part of America. But anyway, Here people is also very spiritual. Yes, I don't know. I have a gurwara, let's say it, in my house. The city Gurutrang Singh in Spanish though, but still it's the same presence, and I hope so. We'll see. Some other Kundalini yoga teachers also have the city Gurutrang Sahib in their homes, and it will build. It will build. I hope so with the time. Yes, I wanted to share when the first time I saw the city Darbar in India. The first time I traveled over there, something that caught my attention. It was very beautiful because it's like when you see somebody for first time and you get the first impression, and that first impression tells you everything, what it's all about. My first impression when I saw the city Darbar Sahib, the Golden Temple in Amritsar, was that it was alive. It was not a temple. Like, this is so alive. So that was a very beautiful blessing. I also have the big blessing to meet Babadaya Singh Ji, Abraham Yani, from the Baba Bidichan Shina Guru Kashina Dal. They have a very big institute, very traditional. Total Brahmyani, total yogi, perfect. And yes, it's true that the hospitality, the Punjabi people, they give you this capacity to serve. It's just so amazing. And I don't know, when you are in the presence of these Brahmyanis, of these saints, I remember that time I was gonna meet him for first time, and they told me they're gonna offer you a chair, but don't sit on the chair, because that's not the way it should be. So I sat down on the floor front of Babadaya Singh Ji, and I was so amazing. I mean, there were no words at all, but this feeling of blessing and samadhi, I recall, I think that this is pretty much what other people who felt in the presence of the citizens of, I only asked Babadaya Singh Ji if he had met Yogi Bhajan, and actually he told me yes, he received many blessings. That was in one trip. That was in the first trip. I mean, really amazed me. This Brahmyani is beyond what we can talk, and they don't like to show themselves. Actually, they show everything they do. They do a lot of miracles. They do a lot of healing, but they do not like to show to the people, They try to cover in a human way, and I think this is the same Yogi Bhajan did. He talked about himself like he was a human or whatever, but they are more than that. But they cannot show. They cannot show their powers. That's a must. That's a rule. And then the third time I traveled over there, I found out that the teacher of Yogi Bhajan teacher Sanhasar Singh, Sanhasar Singh, he was the Gurvaye, and actually this is reported, is the Gurvaye of Baba Sohan Singh Ji, who was the father of Babadaya Singh Ji from the Dal of Baba Bidhi Chand. See? So the lineage is there. And I ask now the Baba who is the son of Baba Daya Singh Ji, and he said to me, yes, and he was the teacher of Yogi Bhajan, and he taught in this place. But they do not like to talk about that. They don't like to show. So we have to learn. I think that this is my own experience and my learning about all this journey that I could share with all of you, is that as learning to be a yogi, I have been I have been trained or to push to see beyond what my physical eyes can see. Hmm? That was one of the things that also told me in one of the trips in India, because we see a lot of poverty. We say, oh, so much poverty in India. But they told me, see beyond your eyes. When we open up our hearts and we can see beyond the appearances, a world beyond what we could describe is open up to us. Se abre ante nosotros. Un mundo hermoso. And we can see the truth. And we can see what is real. It's the same as Yogi Bhajan said. So that's why I think this is part of the interesting things in this journey. Huh? The challenges also. Because it requires to open up so much our hearts. See? To see beyond. And then they come and they will guide you and they will tell you, they will show you the way. So
Right.
hard to say.
Right.
Fun
You know,
now.
I have a kind of a joke I've told my students here sometimes. Basically, North Americans are very egocentric, but very isolated, socially isolated. We don't have much social capital. I mean, it's been studied that people are more and more isolated. There's more people bowling alone. There's a book about it called Bowling Alone. You know, bowling used to do with a team. Now the teams don't exist. People don't bowl. But I used to tell them without any experience really, but just from my own um, reading, that one day Africans will adopt North Americans. North Americans so lost of social connection, so much depressed and anxious without any social connections. Africans, who normally North Americans despise as being very poor in every way. But my understanding is that Africans, and we know that the Punjabis, our Punjabi Sikh brothers and sisters, have a very rich social network. So I would poke my students sometimes and say, you guys think you're so great, you're so rich, but actually you're very poor on a social level, on a spiritual level, on a personal level. And maybe one day Africans will adopt you, because they have room in their heart. They'll adopt you into their tribe and you'll have some meaning and some connection, and you can actually live a life. You can have a community, you can have a people, you can have a tribe. But I haven't been to Africa. Does that make sense to you guys over there? I know Africa is a big, big continent. Krishna Kar made that very clear to me. And you're at one little tip of it. Does that make
Yeah.
any sense to you?
You know, it does. For me, I've got to put things into a container that explains human concepts on a spiritual level. So when I look at the if I'm not using the right words, the story will come out, and forgive me if I approach it a little bit clumsily. So African people have been subjected to many centuries of slavery, and there is an abiding victimhood in that. And I can fully accept that. I can fully see. But African people who are close to me, that I can talk in a more confiding way with them, I will always tell them that what you have is completely missing in white society, because you have culture behind you. White people have lost their culture. There is no culture. What you have is culture, and your culture dictates that your heart chakra is activated. White people have to find that. You already have that. It is a blessing that you have. And I mean, it's yet to be realized in the system that we operate under on this planet, in this age, at this time. That's yet to be realized, but it is there. And if you have friends who are not from a Western background, you will immediately see how open that heart center is, and it's just lovely to be in their company. It's a privilege. It's a
Our
privilege.
interpreter, Livtar Kaur, is offering that in Peru, where she lives, the Inca, those are the founding people, for them, the meaning of poor is a person that has no friends or family. That person is poor.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And in a sense, you know, Yogi Ji, he gave us that, didn't he? He gave us his family. I mean, frankly, I'm having a really transformative experience doing these webinars, okay? I am reaching out and I'm meeting dear, dear family that I've never seen before. And then we have to finish the webinar, and then I'm gonna not probably see you guys again for a long, long time. So it's very connecting, very opening, but also very sad. You know? It's really, but this is all through the grace of Yogi Bhajan, isn't it? You know, you've got a crazy brother over here in Canada, and by the grace of Yogi Bhajan.
You know, it's interesting for me to contemplate the previous 3.5 decades of pursuing this spiritual lifestyle. And for me, always the challenge was how to be able to pursue the spiritual lifestyle 24/7, and not have a split personality where you can be a yogi and then you need to go and sit in an office and do things in order to make money that are in conflict with your yogic philosophies and ideals. But the system demands that you make the money, so you do it. And it's the classic story of the Sikh who owns a bottle store and smokes. You know, there's huge conflict in that. And in this day and age, it's not unusual that we have to live the split life. The person who we really are and really want to be, and the person that has to go out and earn the bucks. So it was on that basis that 10 years ago we decided it was time to move to the country and to go into a sustainability project and just work with the space.
And you've been successful? You would say you've been successful? You've been successful? You would say you've been successful?
It's an ongoing project. And it's a huge learning circle because, I mean, I think that genetically at a DNA level, we have it. But it's a very big job to bring it back into consciousness again. I mean, how did we survive as human beings, you know, hundreds of years ago? And how did our lives transform to a state where we have an economic system that says we have infinite resources and we just need to steal them from the planet on an ongoing basis and have these over-consumerist lifestyles? That is ultimately going to come to naught because the economic equation that we use is a lie. So how do we make it real? And it's an ongoing thing, you know, that system still exists until it doesn't. But essentially, we live a great lie with resources that are dwindling, but we don't change that. We still pursue the same lifestyle. We still generate our trash and we say we're going to throw it away, but away does not exist. But we still do it. So it's an interesting being in this space where we have electricity that's supplied to the property, though we have our own solar installation, but we have no other services here. Everything else we have to either go out and buy, and it's about 40 minutes to the nearest store. Maybe not, no, it's a 45-minute round trip to the nearest store. And the roads are pretty rough. So, you know, over the years, you do it less and less and less. And at the moment, I don't go into town as much as once a week. It's normally like once a week or a little bit less than once a week. And
you grow your own food. Is that what you do?
We have a huge percentage of food, you know, as one single little farm. It's not a feasible project to be able to grow everything you need there. What needs to happen is that needs to start expanding out into the rest of the community. So we can grow some things here. Somebody else can grow some things there. Somebody else can grow some things there. And then we pool it cooperatively. And for me, that's where my path is leading to. And it's all comes from those 3.5 decades ago when I met Yogi Bhajan. And he said to me, don't buy things on credit. Don't buy things with money that you have not already earned. And he said you just need to develop a cash flow. Somehow develop a cash flow and then just work on increasing that cash flow. And it's really about breaking it down into very, very basic concepts. It's almost a process of unlearning everything that you have learned so that you have a much deeper insight. But if you learn a process and then you just apply that process, do you ever give yourself the opportunity to go back on what you've learned and break it down into basic principles and relearn it through new eyes? It's as Sohan Kaur said, see beyond the visible. And I think one of the, you know, Yogi Bhajan taught so much over such a time period that even if you sat in his lecture classes, a lot of the stuff he said would simply go over your head. But a few things would land. And a few things would land as if he was just talking to you. That is a gift. And then over the years, we are blessed to have these teachings recorded so that in later years for me, the really, really deep teaching that I got from him was learn to see it through the eyes of the master. And that when that landed, it was a really wow moment, a really, really wow moment. Learn to see it through the eyes of the master.
You know, we have a tradition of reading the words of the Guru, right? We read Gurbani. But I tell you honestly, you know, one thing technology has evolved. So you can watch videos of the word of the Guru being read, say from Golden Temple, anywhere. There's a lot of channels you can get. You can watch and you can listen to the word of the Guru electronic. But I'll tell you something else. Another angle of that, if you listen to the words of true Guru Sikhs, listen to the words of the Sikhs, that also can uplift you and inspire you. And frankly, I am so uplifted, so inspired listening to you guys. And I've had a whole procession that we've done with so many saints. And we have another schedule going up into December. We have people waitlisted. Listening to you guys is inspiring. I don't know if you can acknowledge that, but you have lived this stuff and you've gone through challenges and you have kept up. That is inspiring. You may call it miraculous, you may not touch on the miraculous, but just existing in Ghana as a very, very small, visible minority in very crazy times is awesome to me. Just awesome. And I think to others as well.
It also feels that being on the countryside and living or promoting a more holistic lifestyle feels different than being in the city and teaching it verbally. So on the countryside, it's more immersive, and actually, it uses the silence of nature as well. Because
are you giving classes there?
Yeah. We've done many teacher trainings here. Now I'm doing a teacher training online. So, you know, the work continues, and the work and the sharing and the reaching out and the teaching out continues. Yeah. But being on the countryside is a different experience in teaching, because there is a big difference between a verbally teaching or an immersive situation. And there's degrees of silence of how we are communicated with and how we have the capacity to communicate as well. And nature needs us to listen and to trust. And it's an experience that we don't get in the city. And I know that students have always said that we should be in the city because we can reach more people, but the learning has to be visceral. It has to be an embodied learning. So how do we do that? And how do we go more into silence and learn through that silence?
My understanding from a distance is that Johannesburg is very violent also. Is that right? Or is it Cape Town? One or the other. There's a lot of crime there. You want to get out of the city.
All of it.
The murder
you
rate
want to get the heck out of there. Yeah.
The murder rates and the rapes and gender-based violence is very, 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 very heavy in this country.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's
another reason.
Poverty, you know, and it's related to poverty.
Yeah.
Well, can I just ask, a little message came up on the screen earlier, a message to all panelists, and I wasn't fast enough to read it, and then it went off the screen.
Oh.
What was the message?
In the chat?
Yeah. This came up in black and white, a little black and white square at the bottom. Oh, there we go.
All panelists, it's a modern miracle that Sri Sisam could produce students, humans of such caliber. That's not a question, really. But if people do have questions, post them.
They also say, thanks, Bhajan Singh is thought balancing until I learned that it is all yoga. Every breath that comes from us is for a purpose, to make it a reality of goodness. There's another comment.
If you have comments, just put them up and read them.
I wanted to share something also. I think that in some way also the Guru is guiding us to the countryside. Yogi Bhajan say also that there's going to be a moment in which there were not going to be cities. Iba a haber un momento en el cual no iban a haber ciudades. And that we have to be ready to be able to do fire with a stick. So like this, I think that the ones who are going to the countryside and we have these places to produce food, the sustainable ways. I have been also been blessed to have a place out of Bogota, 3 hours and a half, no, 2 hours and a half from Bogota, a warm weather, which is different from Bogota, which is colder. And it's very wild. You see a lot of nature, a lot of green, and in a lot of mountains. Actually, in a place that also it was very sacred for the indigenous people, the Chibchas, before here in the Andes, and also has been a place that for the peregrination, how do you say in English, uh, where the people go pilgrimage, for pilgrimage, because in that place where we have the, I call it refugee because it's my refugee from all this stuff going on in the world. I found so much peace there, and there was a woman, a peasant woman, very humble, and you still can find these people so humble and so full of the word of God in their mouths. They always are saying the word of God, you know. So, thanks to God, they treat you in such a beautiful way. And this was a woman, and that who was able to see Jesus. She got the darshan of Jesus. And she started to have to make prophecies and to heal people. So a lot of peasants, a lot of people start to go to this place nearby. We have the refugee. So it's very sacred place. It's a very sacred place. We also have been doing Kundalini yoga there. It's so much difference. And now I start also I know that I have to start to grow food. I've been teaching, learning how to do through internet courses, because I love to do it, but I don't have the knowledge. So, but that's something that we must, yes, we must do. Because of the future that is coming is dangerous.
The knowledge is in you, waiting to be discovered.
Yes, that is another one.
Waiting to be not discovered, but the fuse lit, you know,
Yes.
waiting to be lit up.
Yes, to be in the nature
Technologies that belongs to
force
humanity. One is to grow food and one is to build a shelter.
to good. One is to grow food, and the other thing is what?
To build a shelter.
Oh, yes, sure, yes. So, well, you are all invited here also to come to that place, because it's open up, you know. It's like a refugee where we can.
Refuge, like a refuge. We call it a refuge.
Yes, eso, that my pronunciation, sorry for my pronunciation. But if I am starting to switch between English and Spanish, I get totally messed up.
You're doing fantastic. Fantastico.
Yeah.
Gracias.
Thanks for persisting to keep us all so well informed.
Sorry.
Thank you for persisting in English and keeping us so well informed of what is going on there.
Yes. Yes. In Colombia, as you know, has been is a country that is in the middle. In the middle, it's like a corner, a country in the corner. It's a crossways. See, the entrance to South America and also connection with Center and North America. It's in the middle. And every single place you see in the world that is like in the middle of somewhere, it's a crossing place of frontiers, is in conflict. So we have been in conflict for so long, and we have so much wealth, nature, and also the people. The people here in Colombia is, despite everything has been told, and all the narco traffic and all the things that the media publishes so much, and it's of course it's going on, it's still the people has something very special. So we have been through a process, and we are also fighting a battle against let's say, darkness, like all the world. So I hope that also through the teachings, through the meditations, we can sustain more time. So because has been so much violence, and so much innocent people have been dead, for all this narco traffic stuff. So I think that thanks to the teachings, we have been able, actually, this is my message, we have been able to sustain and to change certain patterns that could have been different, if we have been not meditating. Maybe here we are not very much people. I don't know how many Kundalini yoga teachers or people practicing Kundalini yoga. I don't know. We don't have association of Kundalini yoga teachers, neither like that. Neither we have a strong community for many things that had happened. Anyway, but still the people is very much conscious that we need to do meditation, and because of that, we are keeping up comparison with the other countries in South America. And there is one guy, I don't remember his name really, but he talked about, he came here many years ago, and he made a prophecy. He brought a prophecy from one saint in France, who said that Mexico and Colombia were very special places, and that we are able to keep up the light, in these places. This is gonna bring a lot of light to the rest of the world. But this is coming in the future. Usually, the places where has been a lot of violence, those hide a lot of light, right? So there is a lot of light. So yes,
Right.
as Fata said, in the future, this is gonna be very interesting place.
And
You're
to the
very
left.
radiant. You're not hiding your light. It's a good thing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I know narco traffic is horrible. It's doing a lot of bad things in Mexico and in Colombia and Peru, especially. If you think about it, I mean, one approach is to drop pesticides on the fields, but another approach is to heal America, because that is where the demand is. The American psyche is so damaged, so crippled, they don't feel anything unless they have drugs. And so if we can, through teachers in North America, can do a job and continue to transform the culture, I don't think we've even begun really. The culture still is a narco culture, it's a consumer culture. Their heaven, their nirvana is from outside, and it's very illusory. Big, big job. And until that job is done, you're going to have your narco traffic, guaranteed. Guaranteed.
It is so closely connected to the quest for yoga and for spirituality, So
Absolutely.
I mean, the yoga practice is so so valuable, and the gifts of the teachings are enduring. So I kind of feel that all the problems and all the controversy and all the conversations around the Sri Singh Sab, in a way, they also help for some of us to depersonalize the teacher. What remains? It's a fire that burns things to ashes, and then something remains that's irrefutable and that's enduring, and that can also be the process, actually a healing process, or a defining moment for perhaps many of us.
Can we personalize for a moment? Bhajan, can you tell the story about when Sri Singh Sab invited you to stay with him and you didn't? Can you tell that story?
Sure. But before I go there, there was a question to the panelists there that said, how do you protect your egos in this time?
Go ahead.
And it's an interesting question. I've long, I say to people, but you have to go beyond the ego, and the retort is often, but we still need the ego, and that is very true, because that is who we are. Um, but for me, when I attended my first lecture with Yogi Bhajan, and I could, for the first time in my life, look around me and admit that I had finally found my tribe. It was a profound experience, and it didn't take long for me to be able to realize that I had become a Satnama. And I think the challenge at this time is to what extent you chant Satnam or you are a Satnama. Because if your identity revolves around Satnam, then your ego is protected, it's covered. Because every situation that you're confronted with, you have to sit with it. And you have to find Satnam within that, where there is no conflict within you, where there's just a space of it is what it is, and it needs to be that way. So I hope, dear sister, that answers your question about protecting your ego.
Sohan Kaur, do you want to answer that before we go into Bhajan Singh's story?
Well, I pretty much recall what the words of Yogi Bayan are about this. He said, we either we expand our ego to the infinite, and I think this is the path of struggle, stress, creating many yoga centers or traveling a lot. That requires a lot of energy. Or the other path, he said, melt your ego into the infinite. And that requires full meditation. But we need to get into, in these moments of the planet Earth, I think it's very important for everybody to get into this state of shunya. You see, 0 point. Yogi Bayan used to say, it's great to be zero. Huh? When we are nothing, when we don't have a personal history, see? When we just forget all these things and we are able to become this 0 point, we are more, to drop all the past, we are more able to receive what is new. And to, especially what Yogi Bayan said, if you are able to melt your ego into the infinite and let God work for you, then everything is gonna be fine. Nothing is gonna, no problems in your life. I think this is the big challenge, the big challenge. And of course, doesn't mean that you cannot be in the world and have your ego identity, whatever, but we have to be so much careful. This is the constant work of the yogi, huh? Otherwise we got caught up in the illusion, and these moments with all the manipulation of the media, so forth, it's very easy, huh? So I think this is the I am actually the main work I am doing with the students here in Colombia and with myself is in that point. And he said, Adi Shakti mantra. Let's come back to the beginning of the teachings of Yogi Bhajan. Adi Shakti mantra. Adi Shakti. Ekonkar Satnam Sri Waheguru. This is the way to melt. Huh. Because I will tell you other thing. Many years ago, I only talk about my visions and stuff, but sorry, I do it with humbleness.
We like your visions.
I mean, I'm pretty much alone. And I have the teachings of Yogi Ji and the company of them that talk to me. And after one of the trips from India, and I met Babadaya Singh Ji, he told me in one vision, he said that in this moment we are living, the youth, the young people, especially the young people, are facing a lot of devils. And he said they are very much tempted by drugs and a lot of things which actually are devils. I am trying to explain in my words. And then he said the only way that these devils can be destroyed is if we are able to trust fully on God. Then God will take care of them and will destroy them. And that was many years ago. And every time when I see the situation going on in the planet and the major crimes and the horrible things that are coming out to the face of everybody, pedophile, whatever you name it, it's just you can only get to this conclusion. Yes, we're dealing with devils, very hard devils. And only if we surrender to God, God will take care of everything. But to think that we can deal with that stuff is pretty naive. I think so. My humble opinion. Huh? So, in this moment, all this situation against Yogi Bhajan is just a way to waking us up and tell us the problem was because of the ego, and when there is ego, there is no amigo. Right? So we have to work out very much our egos to see what is true. Waheguru.
Pritam Harekar, did you have a take on this?
When you talk about melting the ego, it also reminds a little bit of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve has the meditative feeling of melting a resistance in the body. So the sense of melting or fire or surrendering, it's also a physical experience. And I agree with your sense of shunya there. I really feel that the way how we will continue to be taught and learn and also teach is more through layers of silence. Like words can fail where experience does not. And I think that the way we apply the teachings and how we use the teachings and work with the teachings may change a little bit through all this time. Back in the days, Yogi Bhajan was a very hands-on teacher and very, very prominent and very personal and very engaged. And the way we learn now is there's a decidedly a definitive change in how the teachings are being, how they apply themselves. And we can say that this has not all been a process of transformation. So it is a process of, even what is happening with the teachings and with Yogi Bhajan's persona and all of that is a process of cutting it down to something more basic and perhaps being more quintessential within our own selves. The yoga isn't going away, the practitioners aren't going away. And the experience isn't going away. So you can maybe ask, what then is going away? What is being released or transformed or transmuted? So it's a proofing through fire in some ways.
Bhajan, tell us a story.
I'm not there yet.
Getting into the zone.
Yeah,
Maybe your wife can help you. She told me half of it, that you got an invitation to visit Yogi Ji.
yeah,
Didn't go.
I'll get there. But
Okay.
on the topic that we're talking about now, to me, the Aquarian age is defined by an energy field. I mean, it's an astrological anomaly, and you know, there used to be that series called Cosmos that Carl Sagan and another gentleman, pardon me, I forget his name, but he deserves credit for it. But they did this series called Cosmos, and there was a book on it too. And the opening line in the book was, if humans are not affected by the sun and the moon and the stars and the planet, then we are the only living things on this planet that are not.
Hmm.
And for me, it is very tangible that we live in a different energy space now. And it's the energy space of the Aquarian age. It's the energy space of Aquarius. And that energy that supported the Piscean age is diminishing at a rapid rate. And the energy of Aquarius is becoming more and more established. And so people who are stuck in Piscean consciousness are in total conflict. And that is the time that we are in now. And we have to go through this because it's the end of patriarchy. And patriarchy has been the ruling paradigm for thousands of years. And it is dying. And it is conflictual. These dying kicks, it is very conflictual for people. And we are right in the middle of that as we sit here. But yeah, I went to summer solstice in New Mexico. I forget what year it was. It was maybe 1998, something like that. But you know, when we went there, we would always have an appointment with Yogi Bhajan, and that time was no different. But it was different for me in that when I left the US, I said that I didn't really want to stay there. And when I left the US the last time after that solstice, I said, I will never come back here. And I just felt that the arrogance that I had encountered there was just more than I wanted to subject myself to. And because I'd gone to Solstice, I didn't go to visit America. I went to Solstice, but I discovered that arrogance very prevalent at Solstice. And I just felt like there was a betrayal somewhere, because where I'd said that this was my tribe, I suddenly felt like it wasn't. I had a problem condoning that within myself. And I started moving away from 3HO. I started going on my own journey. And my dear wife, Pritam was very concerned about this and phoned and spoke to Yogi Bhajan and fed this back to him. And there was a Khalsa Council meeting just after that. And I understand from somebody who was there that he really laid into the American members at Khalsa Council as a result of that. And then he was in Germany shortly after that, and there he wrote on a little piece of paper, Bhajan Singh is invited to spend 1 month with me. And my wife brought that little note back to me, and I still have that note. And I didn't want to go back to the US. I did not want to go there. I would love to have spent time with Yogi Bhajan, but I did not want to do it in the US. And then he was in India at the end of 1999. and we were having the Parliament of the World Religions here. And Jivan Jyotikar was here with us. She was very instrumental in getting teacher training going here, um, which Pritam has been doing for decades by now. And there was this talk that maybe Yogi Bhajan was going to come to the Parliament of World Religions in Cape Town, but his doctor had said no because of his health, he can't make it. And at the last minute, we were scrambling because word came through that he was coming. And so we got in the car and we drove through the night from Johannesburg to Cape Town to meet him at the airport. And when I've never met him at the airport, so I've never met anybody that comes through VIP. So I was looking for where is he? Oh, he would come through VIP. Let's go try and find where that entrance is. And as I walked to the entrance, he was coming through it. And he looked at me and he said, I wondered where you were. He said, I invited you to come and spend some time with me, and you did not come, so I came to you. And, you know, like the old Aero chocolate advertisement that says one bite and all resistance crumbles. That was it. That was it. It was a very profound experience. I was his student.
Very good. And then you gave him a tour of South Africa for part of
Well,
it.
yeah, we did. We had a great time with him here, and then he came to Joburg as well. So we hot-footed it overnight by car back to Joburg, and we hosted him there. And yeah, it was a lovely time. Yeah.
Right. Apparently, he appreciated your work. I got some more notes about that. Your restaurant and the other things you've done. He really appreciated what you've done.
Yeah, he was very appreciative of what we were doing here. He was, and it was nice to hear his praise. It was comforting and it was encouraging and it was heartwarming.
I can imagine. This is one visit to Africa.
Yeah.
Wow. That was historic too. A lot of historic things, you know. We don't think we're just doing our stuff, but if you look back through the how you say, through the glass of history, you say, oh, that's history. That was historic. And it was.
Yeah. He gave a lecture here. You know, the site of the Parliament of the World Religions is a very contentious area because what the apartheid government did is any non-white communities that lived close to city centers, they were just moved out. And the bulldozers would come in and just knock everything down. And the people who lived there would just have to go and make their way somewhere else. There was some land given to them. They said, there you are, go make your homes there. It was incredibly inhumane. And there's one place that is linked to Cape Town called District 6. And that was one of those places. And a few of the buildings survived. And one of them was a church. Was it St. Joseph's Church? No.
St. Mark's.
St. Mark's Church. And he gave a lecture in St. Mark's Church.
Oh, wow.
There, and it was subsequently burnt down. It was subsequently burned to the ground in some protests and riots. And it's very sad because it was such a beautiful stone building. And it was beautiful being in there with him giving an open lecture to whoever wanted to attend.
So many wounds I sense in South Africa, and so many wounds, so much hurt in South Africa on many levels.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of anger,
Yeah.
and it's justified.
Yeah.
I will not criticize. How can you deal with the anger of being relocated like that when your family has been there for generations?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. And
Without a lot of anger.
mm-hmm. And you're bearing medicine, the medicine of Kundalini Yoga. But if anybody just look at you, you're white. What the hell are you doing there? Right?
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard. God bless you guys.
Right.
You know, you can acknowledge color as a historical factor and as a hidden teaching that was given to all of us whites. So it's something that we have to unearth through the subconsciousness, and we have to acknowledge this and take credence of it, etc., etc. And we have to make good on it on some level, and be an ally to human rights and to be an ally to fairness and equality. But on another level, as helpers and communicators of the art of teachings, that's where that color doesn't have such a relevance.
One thing that I have experienced here in Colombia is that even though the people doesn't know about Sikhism, the Bana has a very strong power. The Bana, to wear the turban, the shuni, because that has come. We know is the projection, but it's not our personal projection. It's the projection of the Guru, of the light. Let's say it. And when we are dealing with people who are very angry, or in any circumstances, that will protect us and that will help also. That's what Yogi Bhajan said so many times. He said, there was going to be a time when people is going to look for you. They're going to feel attracted to you. So we only have to keep our light very, very pure, very, very bright, to just no need to say anything, just stand there. And I said this thing because that has been my experience in Colombia wearing the bana. People doesn't know what this means, but for some reason, it communicates something to them. And I think that now more than before, our bana will help us in any circumstances. That will talk for us. But for that, we need to be so neutral, so neutral. Just let God let Yogi Ji, let the Guru to shine through us. We have to be so empty. So that can help to dispel the darkness, because we are in the middle of a fight, very hard fight. So I just wanted to talk about that, about the Bana.
No, it's good. Mana is a projection and it creates an expectation and people would see it. Yogaji also told us, once you create an expectation, don't let people down. I mean, if you're wearing bana but confused inside, not doing your sadhana, and God knows what, doing hanky-panky on the side, people are going to be very angry with you, very angry. So you have to do your inner work and then look beautiful. Even Guru Amar Das, there's a Bani Guru Amar Das wrote about. He said, yeah, be pure and perfect on the outside, also on the inside. It doesn't work just on one side. Some people say, oh, I'm doing my spiritual work on the inside. I'm going to go incognito. I don't have to have a bana. That doesn't work either. This is a very hard path. You have to do it both ways. So be recognizable and then don't be a fake. Fake it, you'll make it. Yeah, fake it, you'll make it. But keep doing your sadhana so you actually do. You don't be a fake forever.
Yes, it's true. It's true. But that's where the challenge is. We have to be so pure now, so congruent with our teachings. So otherwise, we're gonna break down, our minds are going to get into duality, huh? Then all the misinformation, manipulation will get inside of us as it happened and as we are dealing with, huh? Um, so that's a good mirror also. Hmm?
Waheguru.
And even though they will attack, and that happened also. You can be very good, you can be doing your sadhana, your banis, you wear your bana, everything very good, and there still will be people who will attack you also. But those are not real humans at all. It's like
No, Yogaji told us, definitely they will attack you more. It's not that good people don't have bad things happen. Then you have them happen, and then you have the strength to call on Guru Ramdas and work your way through. Speaking of which, I see that Gurutrang Singh just arrived, and he is going to lead us out chanting to Guru Ramdas. Any final words from South Africa before we start chanting?
I think that as human beings, we have it within us to be both Gurmukh and Manmukh. And we have to guard against those Manmukh moments.
Pritam Harikar, you're just going to smile? A smile can speak 1,000 words. You going to say anything?
That makes me laugh. That's actually, yeah.
It's true.
It's the razor's edge, we do have to walk a path with integrity and
Impeccability.
and find a truthful approach to things and lean on the side of humility. That is a bigger thing than wearing too big of a hat. Yeah.
It's been a great, great privilege engaging all of you in this forum. And now we're going to give it over to Gurutrang Singh. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together.
Nam, thank you very much.
Let's find Gurutrang Singh here. Oh, he's there. You hear him?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go for it.
Okay. Guru Guru Waheguru Guru Ramdas Guru 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 Waheguru Guru Ram Das 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 Guru May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on. Guide your way on.
Formless in every form, light in every heart, creator of this creation. We thank you for bringing us together today. We thank you for the legacy of the city Sing Sa, all the beautiful memories, all the stories we're able to recount of our answer to adversity, our keeping up, even when keeping up was difficult. Please continue to keep us up, keep us inspired, keep the light bright in our hearts. Let us be lighthouses wherever we are, by your grace.
Satnam. Gracias. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
I'm very blessed to be able to be in the company of all of you, for this opportunity to share things that I don't usually share, only with the students and in certain moments. So Satnam, God bless you all.
Thank you all. Thank you to Liftar Kaur for translating everything. Satnam. Adios.
Chao, chao. Liftar, we will talk. No, hablamos. Ok, tengo tu mail, me escribes. Satnam, un placer.